Expected points, clean sheet odds, and who is the best captain. This video has got all of the information you need to know ahead of Game Week 30. Now, I'm going to start off, as I do with all of these Ultimate Guide videos, by going through the top goalkeepers for expected points for Game Week 30. But I'm also going to show players in each position for the next 5 game weeks, because I think if you're making transfers in FPL, you need to do so with more than just a 1 game week view in mind, on the most part. You know, right now we have an interesting situation where I think most FPL managers are probably going to use a wild card either this week or next week, Game Week 30, 31, with the fixtures we've got coming up, right? So it might not just be, in some managers' cases, it might not be a 3 to 5 game week view of game weeks for transfers. But one thing I would say, and just I guess just a reminder really, the new rule that FPL implemented this year where you can roll your free transfers after a wildcard. So you use your wildcard and then you still have the same number of free transfers you did the week before, if that makes sense. So it kind of, in previous FPL seasons, we'd have been able to burn a transfer before playing our wildcard, right? Because we just lose them. If we had to, just use one. It's a free transfer, just use it, you know, on a punt. Now it's a bit different, the fact that you can roll it. I just think rolling free transfers on your wildcard is so powerful. So just something to bear in mind. We're looking at goalkeepers here for expected points. And in top, we've got Raya with Fulham at home as his fixture. Dean Henderson's got Southampton away. If I were to put money on who I think is probably going to be the best scoring goalkeeper this week, I would probably say it's Raya, to be honest. Dean Henderson, I think he's good. You know, it's probably the best fixture you can ask for. But the thing is with him against Southampton is, for me, it's either a clean sheet or nothing. I don't really think he's going to get like saves bonus in that game. So yeah, I think Raya is probably fairly the top goalkeeper there for expected points. We've got Kepa with Ipswich at home, Alisson with Everton at home, Onana with Forest away, Areola with Wolves at home, and Sells with Man United at home. Your top keepers for 30. And then just for the next 5 game weeks, I'll show you how Fantasy Football, you can see, it says upgraded the corner there. You can still tell that's Vicario. What Fantasy Football Hub have done for the potential double game weeks. Obviously, there's a large array of potential teams that double into Game Week 33. That's all dependent, of course, on FA Cup results. What Fantasy Football Hub have done with their expected points is they factored in the likelihood of FA Cup results happening in terms of how likely the team is to win, progress, and have a double in that week, as well as the points they're expected to get in that game if it comes off. Does that make sense? So there's a factoring in of, if they play those 2 games, how many points they're going to score, and in that second game, how likely it is to actually occur in the double, and that's all calculated into that expected points total. So you get a pretty, I'd say, with what we know now, a pretty good view of, you know, the expected points for the next 5. So top is actually Nick Pope. You know, Newcastle seemingly got some pretty good fixtures coming up, and of course that double, confirmed double for them in Game Week 32. Alisson, despite not having a potential double game week, is still amongst the top goalkeepers, I think, with just how strong Liverpool are. You got Raya there, obviously potential double game week in 33, but of course the teams that double in 33 will likely blank in 34, so that's all factored in. Got Raya and Henderson there. Dean Henderson, I would probably argue for the next 4 game weeks, he is probably the best goalkeeper in the game. You know, he's got a confirmed double game week in Game Week 32 and a likely double game week in Game Week 33. So you've got 2 consecutive double game weeks for him there. Rob Sanchez, although I think the Chelsea goalkeeper is just too much of a mess at the moment that you can't really hang your hat on any of them starting, so I wouldn't go anywhere near Rob Sanchez. Jordan Pickford's up there, although the Everton fixtures to the end of the season are just absolutely disgusting, to be honest, and then Vicario as well. For me, if I were buying a goalkeeper, I'd look at Dean Henderson. Otherwise, I'd probably just hold whoever I had, unless, of course, it was someone like Rob Sanchez, then I'd probably get rid. All right, next up, we've got defenders then. We see Gabriel top. Again, I think Arsenal got decent clean sheet odds in that game against Fulham. And also, well, it's not really happened with Saka not being in the team. But Gabriel does carry, of course, some decent threat from some set pieces and attacking threat, right? So he's the top defender. We've got Guardiola, who, well, is apparently managing a hamstring issue. He was subbed off in one of Croatia's international games this week. It's subbed off in the 102nd minute, and he walked off the pitch completely under his own steam. And Pep hasn't really given much away, or he certainly wasn't actually asked by the press about Guardiola, which I saw today. He said all players have returned from international break, but didn't specifically mention Guardiola. But I think he'll be fine, to be honest. We've still got a little bit of time before that deadline. Munoz, I got to say, I do think he's probably my favourite defender this week. He has been absolutely insane from an attacking perspective this season for Crystal Palace, basically playing as a right winger for them, and he's got one of the best fixtures you can ask for. Saliba and Timber up there, alongside Van Dijk and Konate as well, with their both, you know, two of the top defenders in the league, I'd say, this season. We all know that, and they've got two relatively decent fixtures. In terms of the next 5 game weeks, again, just remembering that probability of double game weeks being factored into the expected points. Here is how the next 5 game weeks look. So you've got Gabriel and Guardiola 1 and 2. Trippier is up there as well, although I would question his minutes in all of those games. Munoz, yeah, I think he's great. I think Munoz is probably the best defender in the game, similar to Dean Henderson, right? Over the next 4 weeks, I think he's probably the best defender in the game, right? You know, 2 potential consecutive double game weeks. He's a good price, super attacking. I really like Munoz. Fabian Schär, I think of all of the Newcastle defenders, given that Trippier is just not nailed on, and obviously Lewis Hall, well, I guess maybe Trippier is nailed on with the Lewis Hall injury. Maybe he can slot in at left back. But I would say from a centre-back spot, I think Fabian Schär is pretty good from an attacking perspective. He's got a hell of a shot on him, to be fair. And then you've got Saliba and Van Dijk up there as well. They're just kind of stalwarts up there because they play for some of the best defences. And then what I've also done, because I think this is particularly relevant for defenders and midfielders, I've done a filter of the best cheap options at these price points, because I think, yes, you know, we saw a list basically dominated by defenders that cost 5 million or more there. You're not going to be able to have a team full of £5 million defenders, right? So you've got to look a little bit cheaper for some. And you've got Dan Burn, who is the top cheap defender in the game for the next 5. 4.4 million for him. Yeah, he's the top for expected points. Thought you might be interested in seeing that. Livramento's up there as well. You know, he could be pretty decent. I'd actually say his minutes and his general fitness this season, I think, has been better than Trippier's. So I would probably go for Livramento over Trippier if I was picking a Newcastle defender, I think. I'd still think I'd probably put Dan Burn at number 1, to be honest. But yeah, Livramento close second, I'd say. And I just think he's probably going to get more minutes than Trippier at fullback. Mark Gay, he's up there as well, although I'd struggle to pick him at 4.7 million over just going for Munoz. 8 Nori, Wolves not likely to have a double game week, but they do have a cracking set of fixtures anyway. You see there the rest of the teams there too. Colwill, Milenkovic and Mitchell rounding off the list. All right, on to the midfielders then. Salah is the number 1 midfielder, but I've actually put Cole Palmer as the image there because, well, he was injured, wasn't he, in Game Week 29. Missed out. None of us knew that he would miss out. And yeah, got a bit shafted there, including myself. He has been training with Chelsea, or so we hear from the press. So I think he's going to be fit, ready to go for Tottenham. So I thought I'd mention that. Yeah, we got Salah top. I mean, broken the FPL point scoring record. I think if he continues in the sort of run of form he's in, especially considering, you know, Liverpool are out of all of the other competitions, only got the Premier League to play for now, he's probably going to play every game, isn't he? I think there's a chance he could score 400 points this FPL season. I really do. As Liverpool, obviously, probably going to win the title. Ismaila Sarr with Southampton away is in second place. Talked about Cole Palmer. I think he's probably second in my mind, or he is joint second. You can see there on 5.5. But I think there's a gap between him. There's between him and Sarr. Sorry, he is between Sarr and Salah in my mind in terms of expected points. I think Tottenham is obviously a good fixture. Semenyo's up there. We don't see Kluivert. We see Semenyo, who's a bit more favoured by Fantasy Football Hub. I think that might be down to the amount of shots and chances he gets per game. Not necessarily the fact that he's obviously not more clinical, but he does seem to just get more chances, I would say, than Kluivert. Savinho's up there as well. I do like him, but I just don't think I can hang my hat on him starting. Then we got Odegaard and Szoboszlai rounding off the list. Just going to go over to the next screen. In terms of the next 5 game weeks, despite not having a double, Salah is still top. Palmer is second. Again, these players don't have double game weeks, but they're still 2 of the top midfielders for the next 5 weeks. I would say potentially if Saka is likely back fit by sort of game week 31, 32 time, he could be a really exciting option, with obviously Arsenal looking likely to double. It's Jacob Murphy, isn't it? The Newcastle player, not Josh. Yeah, Jacob Murphy. There's obviously 2 brothers, Josh and Jacob. He's up there as well. Obviously, Newcastle's confirmed double in Game Week 32. Ismaila Sarr, the back-to-back doubles, obviously, well, potential back-to-back doubles for Crystal Palace. I think most people will have triple Crystal Palace if they double in 32 on their wild card. It's just a question of what is the best Crystal Palace triple up? I think you've got to have Munoz and, spoiler alert, Mateta in there. I think those are two of the best. And then you've got a decision to make on who, like, the third player is. Whether you go for someone like Ismail Assar or go for Dean Henderson, something like that. And those are the kind of decisions you've got to make. Szoboszlai, Luis Diaz up there. Anthony Gordon as well. Assume he'd be back fit for sort of game week 31, 32 time, potentially. He's obviously suspended at the moment, I believe, and injured. So, yeah, we'll wait and see on Gordon. But I think he's actually flying under the radar at the moment as a game week 31 wildcard option, just by the fact that he's not available right now. And then, similar to what I did with the defenders, I've got a view of cheap midfielders. So top, we've just seen him. Jacob Murphy's top. Yakuba Minter is there as well. Potential double for Brighton in 33. Enzo and Alcaraz, Lindstrom, Buonanotte and Anderson. But it is, well, I think I filtered 5 million and below there. It is slim pickings when you go super cheap in terms of midfielders. I think I'd probably just go for the Bournemouth mids if I was going cheap. And then finally, we got the forwards, top being Haaland. I mean, he's got a great fixture, hasn't he, with Leicester at home, so that's not a real surprise. Isak with Brentford at home. I do think the Haaland fixture is obviously better than Isak's, but I don't think there's too much to separate them this week, which I guess is reflected in those expected points. We see Marmoush in third, Mateta in fourth, although I do think Mateta is slightly held back by the fact that he got injured in that Millwall game. He is going to be fit in return for Southampton, but I don't think that was quite updated when I took this expected point sample. Wissa, Evan Nilsson and João Pedro are your other top forwards. In terms of the next 5 weeks, well, Isak is top, obviously with that Newcastle confirmed double game week in 32 being a little bit more powerful than the potential double game week for Man City in 33. Mateta's up there, of course. You know, I think the three best forwards in the game, unquestionably Isak, Haaland, Mateta for the next 4 game weeks. Wissa, Watkins, Solanke and Wood are your other options. And yeah, those are your top players for the next 1 in 5 weeks. Clean sheet odds then, we've got an interesting prediction as to who is the top team according to 11-5. They've got Man City in first, 52% they are to keep a clean sheet against Leicester. I think their clean sheet odds are good, but I'm not sure I'd rank them higher than some of the other teams here. But I do think they're pretty decent. They got 52, Arsenal 51, Liverpool 49, Bournemouth on 41, Palace on 35, and Nottingham Forest on 30, Newcastle 29. Usually I say, I was sort of hesitating there because I was waiting to say this. Usually I say any teams below sort of 30% to keep a clean sheet, I don't like to pick players from, but I reckon, you know, I pick Wolves and above this week. Brighton, probably not, but Wolves, Newcastle, Forest, Palace, Bournemouth, Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City. I'd look to start then defenders from those teams this week. And any other teams I'd probably look to avoid if I can. All right, finally then, we got the captaincy call. And this week, well, it's somewhat close. A lot of people in the comments of my previous videos have been saying that they think Haaland is the best captain. I think if I had Haaland this week, I would probably give him the armband. I just dropped my phone, but I don't care. I think I'd go for him if I had him because that's why you've picked him. You know, the only reason you spent 14.8 million on Haaland at this point is because surely you think he's the best captain for this week. And the fact that he's 31% owned, and a lot of that will be dead teams from the start of the season as well, don't forget. So Haaland's ownership across actual, you know, active managers right now won't be 31%. So he is a nice differential as a captain. I think if I had him, I probably would. I think it's close enough between Haaland and Salah this week where you could go a little bit different. That obviously gives Salah the power and Haaland the power to absolutely ruin your game week if you do that. But I do think if you picked him, stick with your guns and take the risk. But, you know, for me, I don't have him. I think Salah is a clear best option. You know, I think you've got a debate really between Haaland with probably the best fixture with Leicester compared to Salah playing Everton. There's obviously the Merseyside derby narrative around that as well. It's usually a cagey game. Obviously, it was cagey in the last time it came out. You know, turned out in a draw. Everton did really well. I do just think, you know, Salah's form is just that much better than... So the Salah form is... The difference between Salah and Haaland's form, this is where I'm going. The difference between Salah and Haaland's form is greater than the difference between the fixtures, in my mind. So I think Salah is the best captain based on that. But I do think if you do have Haaland, captain him. Take the risk and captain him because that's why you bought him in the first place, I think. All right, well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. If you did, please leave me a like rating. I'd also be interested in if anything sounds or looks a bit different. It's not quite as good as it was previously on my videos. I just invested some money into a new laptop. My old laptop, here it is. old girl. She did a good job. Started off the channel, had it for, what, 4 years, I think? Well, ever since the channel started, basically. It was the laptop that I started the channel on. It just started giving up the ghost a little bit. It couldn't really handle the deadline streams or live streams anymore. It was just struggling a little bit. So I decided to get myself a new laptop. So RIP my Mac. It's done a stellar job on this channel, and I've got a lot to thank it for, to be honest. But we've changed over to a new one now, and I just wanted some feedback on, you know, if anything is not quite the same in terms of quality. Because I have noticed this is a Windows laptop, and that's obviously a Mac. The Mac is a bit more aligned to graphics, if that makes sense. So if the graphics on this video are not quite as good, I'd be interested to know. Anyway, I'll stop rambling about laptops. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rating. I'd really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments who you're going to captain, and if you're potentially looking at making any transfers for Game Week 30. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Golden Goal channel if you enjoyed this video, of course. And yeah, other than that, I'll catch you in my next video.